Retired detective from the Nutley, New Jersey Police Department. He's also a former member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force and also a lieutenant commander with the Office of Naval Intelligence. Steve, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're watching as these protesters continue to walk along the streets of Charlotte, North Carolina this evening. That curfew in effect from midnight until 6 a.m. You can hear them chanting. Talk to me a little bit more about what Kelly was just discussing and the importance of this tape being released or not being released. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you that most of the law enforcement practitioners whom I've spoken to, attorneys and other people involved in the judicial system, believe that video should have been released a few days ago. Look, there's something called the greater good. And the greater good in this case is to release the video because a picture does not lie. People cannot tell, they can look at a video and they can't make up a story. Now, I believe the police chief. He's a good man. He's done a tremendous job in addressing this issue. But just because I believe him doesn't mean that everybody else is going to believe him. So in order to quell a lot of this, and you could really address the false narratives by bringing out the truth through the video, showed the video. He's talked about transparency, but you've got to be fully transparent, not half transparent.
Well, there's the other side of it, though, and I was reading a little bit about this yesterday in terms of why this law was passed. It goes into effect October 1st that limits the release of the video. And one of the reasons being given is that it, not only, protects or gives the public the right to know, it also protects the officer involved. And then also, if you think about it, they release this video, and that's the final moments of this man's life. So clearly they would want to talk to the family as well and whether or not they would in fact want it to be released. And I know that the family members were able to see the video themselves earlier this evening or this afternoon.
Well, that's reasonable to show the family, understand about protecting the officer. But I go back to the greater good. We need that mechanism to protect the officers out on the streets now and to protect property and to protect other innocent people. Look, think about this. Think about if 2 or 3 people had their cameras and they videotaped the incident. It would be out there. So we're kind of looking at 19th, early 20th century rules in a 21st century policing methodology. And we have to change the rules of engagement here for the greater good.
What about the rules in terms of how officers are trained? From what I understand, this officer involved in this shooting was African American. He'd only been on the force, I believe, 2 years. Was well known in the community, though, had done a lot of good work there. Would an officer, whether or not he had been just on the force for 2 years or longer, would he know the difference between a gun and a book?
Oh, he sure would. And look, here's the issue that I think that is really going to be discussed down the road. There's this idea that a police officer cannot use deadly force if a gun is not pointed at him or her. It takes a millisecond for someone to raise a gun and to shoot and kill a police officer. So if that officer believed that his life was in imminent danger as a result of this individual even holding a gun, then that seems to me to be justifiable. And look, we go back to comply with the law.
Steve, I have to wrap you up. We're running out of time, but thank you, and we'll talk to you later.
You're welcome.
Thanks. We'll be right back.